Hey, Ray's here with the Samurai Jack. About the time, we're gonna be going through some tips and tricks here. A little bit of new segment what I'm gonna be doing. So I'm gonna help you out with some things that you should be doing early in the game, and a few things I'm gonna go about just to generalize. A few things that you should probably be aware of before going into the game. Some are pretty self-explanatory. We'll get into the better ones later. But right now, we're gonna start with the basics. So, first rule is that you need to break everything because you're going to want to collect gold and all of these skill energies to upgrade your abilities. So make sure you go around and just try to break everything you can. It's pretty much a rule in all these kind of games anyway, because you never know what's going to be inside them. So break the crystals, break the barrels, be boxes and all kinds of things throughout the game that you can break. So make sure you keep that up throughout the game to get a nice pile of gold and essence and for your skills. Alright, I don't know why I'm on this record sheet. It has nothing to do with what I'm trying to show you, but rule number 2 is that you steal weapons whenever you can. So, to be able to steal weapons, I know this is like a brand new concept right off the bat that you don't know I'm talking about because this is, right beginning of the game here. So, what you're going to do is you're going to use your Samurai Fist, and you're going to have that out. And in order to be able to take weapons, you just press the RB button with your Samurai Fist out. Also, it coincides with throw as well. I don't think you need throw to steal a weapon, just to be able to knock them down. So here's some instances where I'm talking about that you can take the weapon. First, you're going to want to weaken them, and then you're going to want to press the throw or RB button to be able to steal it from them. So keep that in mind that you can take weapons and they're going to stockpile on your inventory list, and it's kind of a pain because it goes and takes your previous equipped weapon on your slot. So what you can do is, if you're trying to steal a bunch of weapons, you can go ahead and equip your fist to all 4 slots. You can go through here and take all the weapons from them. Now you can take the guns from them too as well. I tried here and it didn't work for a few times. Not all enemies will work right away. Some enemies you have some weapon on them but you can't take. So you can take these guys' guns. I just don't know why I couldn't get it to work. But so did that kick and it killed them. But for the most part, you can take weapons from people with guns and the like, but you can't take bazookas. That's like the one thing that you can't take is like heavy weapons and bazookas. But you can take machine guns and some pistols and things like that, maces and all kinds of melee weapons. So just be sure to take weapons whenever whenever possible, whenever you get a chance to. So whenever you get a chance to take weapons, do it whenever possible, because it'll also be a thing that you can sell for money as well. So you're gonna want to do that as well as going through the game is collecting weapons, because you're not going to need them all. So make sure you sell them for extra gold as well. So keep up on that throughout the game as extra currency. That way you don't have to have any problem with the gold. Another good rule to have if you have a variety of weapons, you want to use your spears. Spears are pretty good in big numbers, especially considering that most of these big group fights, they're all one-hit kills. So here's a variety of spear weapons as well. They are pretty quick. I mean, they're not level 5 by any means, but they're level 3 some of these, and some of these can be pretty good. So I like to use spear weapons for my go-to, I don't know what you want to call them, like those big crowd fights. So when you get into a big crowd of enemies and you know it's going to be the point where they're going to die in one hit, just use some moves with the spear weapons. Look at the combos. You have to get an idea of how to do some of these moves, and you can shred through the crowds pretty quickly versus using a sword and getting like those single strikes in. It takes a little bit more time, but I'd use a spear for this kind of thing here. So here's an example. Put it right in the game. In the first level, that you get to one of these big areas where you get swarmed. So keep that in mind as well going through the game. It's not a must, just a helpful little pointer that, make it a little quicker for you. And you can also close the gap in on them, especially since most crowd fights are going to have a variety of enemies with melee combat and guns. So you can close the gap pretty quickly on them with this weapon as well. So you'll be able to close that distance, finish them all off with no problem at all. So I think that's a pretty good helpful thing. I used to use it quite a bit before I came up with the ending game result method, which I will get to later on as well. But for the most part, it is pretty handy. I'm just gonna go ahead and finish out the rest of these guys here, just to kind of show you of what I'm doing, just closing the distance on some of the people. Rocket launcher guys, though, can be real pain if you can't get to them. I would recommend trying to just avoid the melee combat guys for the time being, and going for the ranged ones because it can be a bit of a pain. Because you can be in the middle of fighting someone and just get blasted like that and knock you back. It's pretty annoying. So like I said, just close that distance with them with this weapon, the spear, and finish them off. We'll be getting on to the next little bit of tip here in a second. So, like I was saying earlier about stealing weapons, right? So make sure that when you are taking all these weapons that you don't need, go ahead and go to the shop. You'll be finding them throughout most levels. So you can pretty much get them on most levels, just not every single level. So go ahead and hit them up, sell your weapons, sell anything you don't need. Like a good demeanor, what I'd say is, if you were to keep just using the fist or the regular sword, and you don't want to use any of the weapons as well, you could just sell everything. I would recommend, if you did find a bow at any time, keep it until you get a better one. You're gonna always want at least one bow, so don't sell all your bows because that comes in handy. That is your only free to aim weapon you have in the game, so just keep that in mind. I'm trying to show you over here where the store is at, so you have an idea. After I did all the other things, I came over here and went to the store. So just make sure you go to the store and sell your things. It's pretty important that you keep up on that as well, because you could run into a problem where you have too many weapons and you go to get more weapons and steal them, and you can't carry anything more. So it's just basically free gold for you to acquire throughout the game. So just go ahead and sell all your duplicates, sell them all if you don't want them, and you want to use this fist or the samurai sword. I like to at least leave a few open areas for my weapons, so I can just have more room for more weapons. So keep that in mind, that is what you're gonna want to kind of do. Maybe keep one of each, keep track of what you're going for the achievement, because there is an achievement to get one of each weapon. Doesn't mean at a time, but we just, one of each weapon you get acquired throughout the game. So that way, if you keep one of each, you know for sure that you've had it. So go ahead and keep one if you want. If not, you can write it down, keep it and check that way too as well. But I'm gonna go ahead and just keep selling all my things I don't need, because I have an abundance of ammo and different weapons I don't really want necessarily. If you want to, though, there is also an upgrade in the skill tree that lets you have a bigger inventory slot for melee weapons as well as your ranged weapons. So keep that in mind. It's not like it's a huge deal that you run into a problem now, but you can always upgrade your slot space later. It definitely takes a little bit to get to those upgrades. I think they're a little bit further down the skill tree. So keep that in mind. But like I said, I'm just going to go ahead and clear all these duplicates and things I don't need real quick before we get on to the next tip here in just a second. So as I said earlier, another important thing was to upgrade your sword and your fist. I would recommend doing these first, considering that they are unbreakable. You're going to want these done first. And a later strategy that you're going to want is your fist for the hard difficulties, because I have some pretty good tips on how to use your fist to beat the hard difficulties. So go ahead and upgrade the sword and your fist first, because they are pretty important. You don't really necessarily need the other weapons. They're there just to kind of have fun with, I would say. So just keep that in mind. Go for these first before anything else. So don't waste your gold on all the other weapons. Just these two. That way you have better experience and maybe get some better understanding of the fist before I show you what I'm going to be talking about later on. Not to mention, you will need to upgrade them all anyway for an achievement, but just do your fist and sword first. They are definitely more important at this time at the beginning of the game and later on as well, so just keep that in mind. Kind of jumping back and forth here a little bit. I kind of jumped the gun and probably could have put this in my earlier bit, but when I was showing you the inventory when I was selling my weapons, I guess it's kind of the same thing, but it's kind of a separate strategy and altogether what I was trying to get at, but I was telling you ahead in the shop as well. So just make sure going through the game that you always leave space for at least 2 to 3 weapon slots for new weapons to be picked up, because you never know what you'll be grabbing from chests, depending upon how much you like to steal weapons from people. Not to mention when you talk to your allies, they give weapons as well. So just make sure you always leave spot for a few things to be able to have room for more add-on. That way you can also sell it if you don't want it for gold in the meantime. Alright, moving on to the skills tree. Now, this is required, but it makes the game a lot easier, I think. Combos are important, yes, because you can use various techniques to get around everything. And the other tree is pretty good too. I just didn't find a need for it right away. I went for my physical skills first. Why? Because there is health increase in here, and you can do a heck of a lot more. You can have your double jump, your super high jumps, things like that, break guards, moves and things that are going to help you get out of a worse situation than what it's going to be, because you're not going to want to sit here and get pinned in corners and not be able to jump over enemies by doing single jump, things like that. Some people might come in here and do a few in the tree and then leave and go to other ones. I recommend going as far as you dare, because this tree helped me out quite a bit going through the game, and there are some pretty good things in here, like the throw, which you're obviously going to want, to be able to throw the enemies to the ground is pretty crucial, considering that you can knock them down and get some free hits on them. Like I said before, increased health as well, pretty important. So like your main ones right here at the top. So you get them pretty early on, your health, your double jump, and your throws. I also would recommend getting this dodge roll. So you basically get like another dodge and then a roll afterwards to get away. That's pretty important to get away from bosses with big AoEs, so make sure you get that right off the bat too. Like I said, there's other things in here that are pretty good. I think further down the line, towards the bottom, there's even like reduced damage and things like that. So if you keep working on this tree, it will help you out quite a bit. And here is the other jump, the extra jump that you get. It's pretty good as well, because you're going to need to get this jump to get to some extra items in the game, because you can't get to the height of some of them by doing just a double jump. You'll need to do this extra high jump to be able to get to different places for collectibles and things like that. So keep that in mind as well, and grab that early on when you get a chance to. Other than that, we'll be going on to the next tip here in just a second. Another good rule to always have is to always talk to your friends. Every time you see an ally on the field, you see the X button, go up and talk to them. Not really important to read it, but have some dialogue there. But the important thing is that they always give you some kind of item. Now, whether it be throwing star weapons or whether it be some item to upgrade your skills, it's pretty important that you go through and talk to them. Even come back to the same level, they'll reward you with the same things. Keep that in mind for when you want to upgrade your skills. They do give you some gems to upgrade your your skills, not your weapons, but they do give weapons as well. So keep that in mind, going through and talking to everybody you can. Make sure you're pretty thorough and explore the levels. Make sure you do that, because it's pretty important.
What's next?
Another important tip is to press the view button to help yourself navigate the map. Now, you might get turned around in some areas because you want to go the wrong way on purpose to explore. I found this extremely helpful to press the view button, so it shows you the right way to go to progress the story. And if you come into an option like this with a split end and you can't really tell which way is the right or wrong way to go to advance, you can just press the view button or the back button, whichever you prefer to call it, and that way it'll show you the right direction you want to go. That way you can make the wrong direction choice. That way you can explore and get all your collectibles and things like that. So keep that in mind every time you come into a multiple path option, to press the view button, so that way you can go the opposite direction and to collect things that you might miss otherwise. An important factor when fighting Demongo, alright? So when you fight Demongo, you can either try to attack him directly, which is kind of hard to do because he's in the air the entire time until you get him down in a sense. The best way to beat him is by beating his little minions, and they drop like these essence balls, and you can see them over there. I just missed one, it went back up, and it went back to Demongo. So if you're not fast enough after you defeat the minions, and you see the little essence ball on the ground, you need to attack it right here, like that, and it goes back to him and deals some massive damage to him as well. So in case you haven't picked it up on the first few fights, you've done this with Demongo, make sure you attack with the essence balls to kill him a lot faster. Otherwise, if you don't, you attack his minions and then straight off to try and attack him, it'll take a lot longer. So just keep that in mind when attacking Demongo. Essence balls are important. You can attack him when he is down on the ground after the fact that you get rid of all the essence balls on the ground, and he should go down on the ground in like a kneeling state. That way you know you can deal more massive damage to him on that note.
Next time, I will defeat you.
Alright, I'm going to talk about different prayer bead bracelets. So you have the power bracelet, which gives you increased damage to enemies. There are 3 of them I have purchased. Just pay attention to them in the store. There may be more. I haven't bought everything in the store. So there's also a guardian bracelet, which is damage reduction. I recommend after you use the last one I'm going to show you here, which is gold increase from dropped enemies. I used that until I got all of my weapons upgraded. Yeah, it's called the luck bracelet, so you get more gold dropped from enemies. I'd recommend using this first. That way you get more gold for a while, then your choice after that to defense or attack increase. Another really handy item is called Gift of the Gods. So I'd recommend only use this if you have enough gold and after your weapons are upgraded. This will be really handy for higher difficulty levels in case if you die. So if you basically are dead, you basically come back to life with like maybe a quarter of life left. You also can get this kind of same aspect done on the lower difficulties. I think Jack and Samurai also have like the same kind of reward. So this is basically what it is, except for you gotta pay for it on the higher difficulties to come back to life. I'd recommend only using this if you think you're gonna die in a boss fight when you're about to beat maybe Aku or somebody. Other than that, I wouldn't really highly recommend it unless you're really struggling. Alright, some important moves to get through the higher difficulty levels here. I recommend upgrading the Samurai Fist to level 4 first. This is a pretty OP weapon if you ask me, if you know how to do it right. There's some pretty good moves in here that I'm going to show you to use throughout the game on higher difficulties. I'd highly recommend using these. It's gotten me through the game pretty easily without too much struggle. So basically, you're just going to spin your analog stick around in a circle and press X. And it gives you an uppercut. And it's also an unblockable move, on an enemy. So basically, if they're blocking a lot, you can use this, and it should stun them back a little bit, give you a free shot on them. Another one, as you can see right beneath it, is like the same thing. You use your analog stick to spin it around in a circle, and you press the Y to do like a spinning hook kick. Now what I do is I spam both these, and I go back and forth between both these. Most of the time I use the Y because it also gets nearby enemies, and it can deal with crowds and things like that. Another really important move to string into those two combos as well would be the double jump Y attack. So you're going to do double jump in the air and press the Y button. This helps you close distances on enemies across the map, as well as hit enemies in the air. So those flying enemies that are real pests in the air shooting at you, you can also lock onto them and double jump and use the Y button to launch yourself to them. It's pretty good for getting yourself across the map to one enemy to another. Just keep in mind that you have to have this double jump before you can actually use that Y ability, which is pretty early on in the physical abilities, so don't worry about that. Here I've given you some examples of what I use it on. So I'm using it on these tough ninjas, right? These guys can be a bit of a pain, and as you can see, they are relentless on higher difficulties. I am playing on, I think, Warrior, the second hardest difficulty, and they deal some pretty good damage, and I'm just constantly spamming the rotating Y and X button on these guys back and forth. And if I get too crowded or smashed up against the wall, I try to use the double jump Y attack, or if you have to, just use your ult to push them away, because these guys can be pretty relentless. So I'm going to give you a few more examples of this move and these combos stringing together. So I'm going to show you what it's like to do a big crowd of enemies. Like I said, I just basically kind of randomly string them all together depending upon where they're at. And if I defeat enemies in one area, I try to use the double jump Y attack button to get across to the other enemies. Because otherwise the little guys will shoot at you, and you want to close that distance pretty quickly. So it works out pretty well in that manner. Other than that, I just kind of spam the rotating Y and X button for uppercut and spin hook kick. It works pretty well. And always use your alt as well to tie that in with the rest of it, because you can build those alt meters pretty quickly going through the game if you're not paying attention and you're going through the game and you're not really struggling too much. I recommend saving your alts for situations like the ninjas, when you get overwhelmed, boss fights for sure. They'll definitely help you out in boss fights, so get the health down pretty quickly. Other than that, this is pretty much what you're going to be doing on higher difficulties. You can also do this with the sword, but it's not quite as efficient, I don't think. You can do this the same thing for the sword, to double jump Y attack to close the distance, but you don't have the unblockable uppercut move, and I think the spinning sword spin is not quite as efficient as the melee one. But it can still work if you really want to. I just recommend the fist because you have the unblockable uppercut, because enemies in higher difficulties tend to block quite a bit. So with that being said, I'm just going to show you the last few examples, and I'm going to wrap this video up. I kind of already showed this earlier with the ninjas, so I'm going to show you with one more spot with these, I think, ninjas. Yep, up here before the bar fight. So same thing. I think I tie in more of the double jump kick here, because these guys are really tough as well. The Imakandes. These guys can be a real pain. So if you really wanted to, you could just double jump, spam Y button the entire time if you really feel like being cheap. And you don't really want to get close to them, because after a while the ninjas disappear and they always get behind you. And the Imakande sometimes will do that like weird unblockable instant like spin you around, try to wrap you up to capture your move, which can be real pain. And take like half your life away pretty quickly. Like I said, if you're always struggling with these areas, use your alt moves. Hopefully you have some of that saved up. Hopefully you have maybe at least 2 of them unlocked, so you have at least, you know, 1 for just emergency situations, and at least save 1 for a boss fight. So as you can see, it worked pretty well, and like I said, I am on a higher difficulty, so it does pretty good damage to them, and also you can stay out of their path of their shots. Now my last example for the fist move would be for boss fights. You could do the same method on all bosses. I would be showing you because I was on the same level, so it's a multi-boss fight. But it also works for the big bosses as well, especially for the Ancient of the Caves boss, the Guardian. You can just basically stand under his legs the entire time and kind of avoid attacks, stay behind and underneath of him. These guys work pretty well too, because you're just kind of all over the place. So when you're not near them, you can use the double jump Y attack to kind of close that gap on these guys too as well. And I try to focus on him first, so I can get him out the way. And I'm gonna get her next. Also, I'm gonna take her umbrella from her. I also have an achievement guide on that as well, how to do that. It's pretty good for money and for gold if you're missing out on some gold. Other than that, these are my tips and tricks. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I think I highly enjoyed making this kind of video for you guys for the first time. So let me know your feedback down below, what you think of it. I hope you guys liked it as well. Just make sure you leave a like and subscribe. And I will get back to you guys with some more achievement videos.